On today's episode of the Ag Irrigation Collective, we're going to visit about spring startups on wheel line irrigation systems. Stick around. Hi, I'm Wes Schaefer, your host with the Ag Irrigation Collective. Sure do appreciate you stopping in today to join us for a podcast. We're going to take a look at a document that was put out by Utah State University, which has a very strong agricultural program. Most of you have heard of USU out of Logan, Utah. They put out some great information and do some awesome irrigation studies and other agricultural studies. This document actually is very old, but it still holds a lot of value, and I wanted to cover it as we creep into the springtime startup with some irrigation stuff. And I wanted to cover some wheel lines today. I imagine in the next episode we can cover some pivot startup of things to be cognizant of as we creep into the springtime, getting started up for the year. As we've discussed in past episodes, a lot of wheel lines are used in the western United States. They're not quite as readily in use in the eastern U.S., and so you may not be familiar with them if you're in the east and in other areas that do not use them. So I'm going to kind of cover what those look like and what it is. So in wheel move, and actually a wheel line, wheel move, they're called a lot of different things actually. I've heard them called a side roll, a wheel move, a wheel line. There's a lot of different names for them. It's basically aluminum pipe with a mover at the center. There is one brand that the mover actually is at the center, but the power unit, the motor, is at the end, and there's a drive line that runs down to them. So there's a couple of different versions or different styles of how these are operated. And so anyway, you may see some around. The wheel move components, though, and in this document, they call it a wheel move. The wheel move is a mechanical irrigation system that can be moved intact, meaning you don't have to take it apart as you might a hand line. And it is moved from one location in a field to another by means of an internal combustion engine. And now also there are available systems that replace the internal combustion engine with a battery-powered electric motor that then those batteries are charged with solar panel that is on top of the cover of the mover. And a wheel move system, it consists of the mover and lateral pipe with wheels attached at the center of each of those pipes, sprinklers, couplers, connectors, and at the very end, a flexible supply line that goes from the riser, which would be a stub valve, and it's typically a 20-foot line that's a 20-foot hose that feeds into the end of the wheel line or the wheel move. And the power mover is mounted in the center, typically, of the wheel line system, and it provides the power to move or drive the irrigation system. The joints of each pipe that make up the lateral pipeline serve as the axle of each of these wheels, and they're supported above the ground by wheels that are sized from either a 5-foot wheel, a 6-foot wheel, or a 7-foot wheel. There are some custom wheel sizing that you can get. I've seen up as large as a 10-foot diameter wheel that I've seen some fellows use in sweet corn applications. Any other type of corn applications are not suitable for wheel lines, but I have seen some 10-foot wheels in sweet corn, and that's pretty neat to see corn irrigated with a wheel line in that fashion. And your wheels are mounted about midway along each length of aluminum pipe. They're typically 40-foot sections of pipe, either 5-inch or 4-inch aluminum pipe. And then their sprinklers are located at the connections on the ends of those lateral pipes where it might connect in. And the sprinklers are positioned then midway between each wheel at the edge of the lateral pipe. And normally a wheel line has impact sprinkler heads with levelers to keep the sprinklers in an upright position. Located adjacent to each sprinkler, there's a drain that automatically empties when the pipeline pressure drops off, when you basically turn your water off or you lose pressure. The couplers between the pipe joints provide a watertight connection, and it also transmit the torque when that pipe is rotated to move the system produced by the power mover. and it goes down along the entire length of the system and able to roll those wheels over. And at one end of your lateral line is then connected to your water system, your underground water system with a flexible hose into your pressurized mainline pipe. And there's risers are at suitable intervals. So as we get into spring maintenance of the wheel line system is what we're going to cover today, now that everyone is up to speed on kind of how this wheel line functions throughout the field. Spring maintenance of your wheel line system should be tested and any necessary repairs completed prior to the start of the irrigation season. All irrigation systems should receive special attention prior to beginning of each irrigation system. If your wheel line has been properly prepared for the winter storage, spring maintenance, of course, is much easier. The maintenance that we're going to discuss here should be completed during the spring pre-operational inspection of your wheel line unit. So we'll creep into this. If your engine and or transmission components were removed for repair storage during the winter, they, of course, should be reinstalled, and all your gears and chains should be replaced according to the manufacturer's specifications. The chain and gears of the drive mechanism should have all dirt and debris removed, and the teeth and chains should be then lubricated at this time. And if necessary, the drive chain should be realigned and tightened or loosened if necessary. And of course, following the manufacturer's recommendations on the lubricant selection and application. You want to check your oil level in the engine crankcase and fill it as needed. You want to take special care not to overfill this. If the engine oil is dirty or it was not changed last year, now is a good time to drain your oil and replace that engine oil. You want to clean your air filter and replace it if needed, depending on your manufacturer recommendation. Normally, the air filters in these smaller engines can be cleaned and reused several times before you must replace it. Clean air filter is critical to help prolong the life of that engine. You want to remove dirt, oil, and debris from the exterior engine surfaces, paying special attention to the cooling fins, which are the surfaces near the air intake and the carburetor linkages. You also want to check your fluid reservoir of the hydraulic transmission if needed, fill it to the proper level, and if your fluid appears dirty, it also may require changing. And if there's an inline filter in the pickup line of the transmission, it also should be serviced. You want to make sure your fuel tank is free of debris and fill it with clean fuel. If the fuel tank was not emptied at the end of last season, drain the tank now and fill it with new fuel. And you want to try and use gasoline that was not left over from the previous season. Fresh gas is, of course, always best. You want to inspect the entire length of your wheel line unit, inspecting the wheels, the power mover for loose bolts, equipment wear, winter damage, which also can be caused by cattle and other livestock that you may have in the field. And of course, make those repairs as necessary. You're going to want to grease your wheel axles and your main drive hub bearings with some water-resistant multi-purpose grease. And if available, follow the manufacturer recommendations concerning the lubrication selection and application. In order to test the nozzle's connection, water must be pumped through the wheel line system. The cover of the mover should be closed before turning the irrigation water on. Of course, that's going to keep water off your engine components. And you want to check all your nozzles and impact sprinklers for any plug nozzles, mismatched sizes, breakage, corrosion, or other damage caused by wear or winter weather. You want to check your couplers and connections for leaks and do repairs and replacements early. It is a good practice to identify problem components at the end of each irrigation season and then have the replacement parts on hand for your spring installation and startup. Before testing your mover, the stakes or tie downs that anchored the irrigation system during the winter should be removed. It is a good idea to complete the majority of the maintenance activities before attempting to relocate the wheel line unit. Special attention should be directed at the carburetor of these gasoline engines. If fuel is left in the carburetor over the wintertime, all your fuel orifices and passages may have become clogged with sediment, residue, and additives. If gas is not entering the engine cylinder from the carburetor may require adjustment or cleaning before the engine will start and operate properly. And if your engine will not start, there are 3 things that should be checked. You want to check for your ignition spark, fuel delivery, and cylinder compression. If any of these items are not working properly, the engine will not provide necessary power, and often it certainly won't start either. So that's kind of critical to get your wheel mover down the field. You want to check the operation of the mover, engage your transmission, and slowly power the wheel line unit forward or backward to make sure all the wheels, chains, and gears are working properly. When attempting to operate the mover, make sure that the wheel move is straight or the ends are slightly lagging behind the mover's direction of travel. Also, your wheel line unit should not be moved with water in the pipeline. During the spring maintenance activities, the engine and transmission of the wheel line unit should receive special attention. If they fail to operate during the growing season, the irrigation equipment will not readily advance across the field, and of course, causing the frustration. It also can contribute to some yield losses if you're unable to get irrigated in a timely fashion. So then, now that we know some spring startup procedures and some maintenance checks to look for, there's also some maintenance to be done during the season. The wheel line must be moved with the irrigation pipe straight or with the ends lagging slightly behind the mover. If the pipeline becomes crooked or an end gets ahead of the center mover, the operator, which is you, should manually pull the pipeline into the proper position. This should be done when the wheel move system first begins to advance. Do not attempt to operate the wheel line with the ends ahead of the power mover. If the ends are in front of the mover, they will tend to roll toward the center, which can buckle the pipeline. And of course, you do not want to move the unit with water in the pipeline. When there's water is turned off, of course, the drains are designed to open up, allowing the water to drain before relocating the irrigation unit. A wheel line system, specifically the pipe couplers, are not designed to carry the additional weight of the water when that torque is introduced to be moved. You want to lubricate the wheel chains every 2 weeks with some 30-weight oil and adjust your chain linkage to correct for chain stretch and sprocket wear. And then you can realign your chain sprockets when improper tracking occurs. Of course, you want to lubricate the wheel axle, main drive hub, and jack shaft bearings every 2 weeks with some water-resistant multi-purpose grease. I see a lot of guys with their four-wheeler, and they have like a milk crate basket on the front with a grease gun in there. They've got a few other tools to help take out nozzles and check stuff. It's basically their wheel line moving four-wheeler, and they just got a whole bunch of stuff in this milk crate up on the front rack. If leaks occur at your joints or drain plugs during irrigation, check the gaskets and pipeline connections for wear or cracks, and then, of course, replace those as needed. You want to check and tighten the couplers and connectors as required. Check and replace worn nozzles and impact sprinklers. This will keep your irrigation pattern and application rate at the design specifications. And you also want to inspect and tighten bolts, nuts, and wheels in the mover and on the engine mounts, making sure everything's in line there. And so basically it's, somewhat of a good thing to keep an eye on everything. And as you do when you're getting in a vehicle, you kind of do a pre-trip inspection. You get on a forklift, you get on your tractor, walk around, you're checking oil. You want to do the same thing with your wheel line so you can keep it in tip-top shape so it gives you many years of trouble-free use, and there is maintenance required for that. So I thought we could add that to our lineup of podcasts here in the event that it's useful and helpful to you. I hope you find this information useful that we're putting out on podcast. And if you think your neighbors might find it helpful, share this podcast with them, and then they can refer back to it and listen to it. And it hopefully some good information for everybody to pass around. So that's going to conclude our podcast today. I sure appreciate you joining us for an episode of the Ag Irrigation Collective. We'll catch you on down the road. Be profitable, my friends.